We have recently been acting in new and different ways that will finally help us to move into a different and better chapter of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020. These new and different behaviors are ones where we do things, yes, of course, but in ways that are simpler, easier, more in tune with our individual desires, and don't require nearly as much work, steps, or effort. This is a very good thing, but because these different behaviors have required us to do less than we would normally be doing, we have felt like we are doing nothing at all, or like life is stagnating, which is simply not the case. As a result, this slowness has triggered a lot of anxiety about whether or not we will ever be able to fully change our lives for the better. Well, in the past few weeks, we have finally gotten a handle on this anxiety and become a little more accepting of our situation and whatever pace it requires. We have also started to enjoy this process and envision more of a future with it. However, we are still a bit hesitant about this new way of acting and are not embracing it fully and completely in the way that we need, preventing us from finally reaching our goals in this new and better chapter of life we've been trying to get to. At this new moon in Gemini, we are learning to more fully embrace this life of ease, fun, and simplicity, and to not beat ourselves up so much about the process. We are also learning to let go of old beliefs about how we should or should not behave in life. Hi, I'm your astrologer, Brittany of Ethereal Astrology, helping you to see the larger story of your life. Today, you're watching your astrology horoscope for the new moon in the sign of Gemini, which occurs on Monday, May 26, 2025 at 11:02 p.m. Eastern Time or 8:02 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, let's go ahead and let's hop right into it. Here, in order to get started, what I like to do first is to place on the chart what it is that I'm referring to here so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let me do that now. This video here is for the new moon in Gemini. Because of that, I have adjusted my chart accordingly for that lunar event. I know that my chart is set for that because I've got the sun and the moon here making a conjunction at the same exact degree of the same exact sign. And when the moon and the sun are making a conjunction like this, that is considered a new moon. And of course, it's in Gemini because that's the sign that they're both in. Okay, now what is this about? I like to start by giving you some big general themes or ideas of what's going on here. So let's do that. New moons are the beginning of a new lunar month or a new lunar cycle. And because of that, they tend to bring new energy, right? A new beginning or a fresh start here in some way. Not only do they tend to bring that, but I also want to note as well, it's usually a small new beginning or a small fresh start that we may not see super clearly at the new moon, because remember, the new moon is when the moon is darkest in the sky, but that will get bigger and more seen as the whole lunar month continues and as we move further throughout it. So it's a small new beginning, fresh start, or new energy that is just beginning to grow. Okay, what is that? That's starting to begin and grow. Well, that's going to be Gemini here because that is the sign that the new moon is in. Gemini is a mutable sign. Here, mutable signs to me are a lot about adapting to something and getting more used to something, perhaps that we recently started back in Aries season, right? Which in Aries season is the beginning of the zodiac and the astrological year. So that to me is one very significant thing that's trying to go on here at this new moon in Gemini, is that we're starting to get a little bit more energy and a boost to adapt to something, get more used to something, right? Make something more familiar that we may have recently just started doing. In addition to that, because Gemini is a mutable sign, I also consider it not only to be about adapting to something and getting used to something, but about being more flexible here with whatever it is that you're doing. You know, not being afraid to kind of make little tweaks and mix things up a little bit here in order to maybe optimize it in the way that you might need. So in addition, at this new moon in Gemini, to us trying to adapt to something we may have recently started and make it more familiar, we're also trying to be more flexible with it and to maybe make tweaks here and there to this thing to make it different or better or work with it here in a better way. Not only that, but Gemini is also an air sign. Air signs do tend to be more intellectual, more about the mind, ideas, information. And in this case, I'm going to go more information and facts here too, as well about our situation. I think we're also trying to gather more information or facts, or another thing that Gemini likes is to learn more information and facts about what we're doing, something new that we started. Because a lot of times learning information, gathering facts helps us to adapt to something that we're doing and make tweaks and be more flexible with our situation. So to build on it here, we're getting a small beginning, a small start here at this new moon in Gemini to adapt to something we've already started, maybe be more flexible with it and make some tweaks to it and gather information about what we're doing, learn more about it so that we can make these adjustments and adapt to it accordingly. In addition to that, I also want to note as well about the Gemini here. Not only is it about gathering facts, information, and learning, but there's also an open-mindedness here to Gemini as well. I think that's part of that is with the fact that it's an air sign and with a mutable sign as well, right? Gemini is not afraid to change its mind, right? And that to me is sometimes what being open-minded is about, because Gemini is about ideas and is so flexible, will change its mind as new facts or new information comes in, or just be open-minded to whatever here may occur or might need to happen next, which I think is also important, because when we're trying to adapt to something and get used to it, and when we're gathering more information, it helps us to adjust our mindset and how we think about our life and our ideas in order to match some new experiences that are just now coming in. So that's another thing here that's happening. We're getting a fresh start to adapt to something we've recently started, learn more about it, make any tweaks, small tweaks or adjustments that it is that we need, and adjust our mindset to this different experience here as we might need. Okay. In addition to that, I also want to note too that Gemini is a lot about communication here as well, being an air sign, yes, and also a Mercury ruled sign too. So it's about communicating here with other people about maybe what we're doing, what we're trying to adapt to, or what we're trying to work out, or communicating with other people to get information about what is going on here in our situation. While we're on the thing about communication too, I want to note that Gemini is usually indicates very good communication here. It's a sign because that's what it naturally correlates to. And I think what makes communication so effective in Gemini, or Gemini so good at communication, is that open-mindedness. It doesn't communicate from a place of a preconceived belief of this is what I believe, and if you don't believe it, then why not? No, Gemini is more open-minded. It will communicate from this place of, I don't know, I'm just asking questions just to see. And that's what makes the communication a lot better and easier, I think, and why it might make Gemini known for being better about that here as well. So that's another thing that I think is going on here at this new moon in Gemini. Not only are we getting kind of a fresh start here to adapt to something we've already started, learn about it and make tweaks so that we can adjust to it more, but we're also getting a boost as well to be more open-minded, maybe even to let go of preconceived ideas, notions, and beliefs about our life, and to communicate more about what we're learning in more open-minded ways here with other people. Not only that, I do say this every once in a while here about Gemini. Sometimes I see Gemini as a relational sign. I don't know if I would quite say a relationship sign, but I do see it as being one that maybe does like to engage more in relationships or connections with other people. I typically see it because Gemini is ruled by the twins, right? That's the symbol of it. And it's the only sign that's symbolized by two people here. A lot of them aren't even people, they're animals and things of that sort. So this is the only sign symbolized by two people here, and trying to kind of like see eye to eye or find similarities, right? Twins are similar in some ways here as well. So I also think that there's something that's really trying to go on here is where we're trying to connect with other people and find the similarities between ourselves, or if not the similarities, to find connections in some way too, which again requires you to kind of be more open-minded here, because people as well can help us, right? Sometimes people can help us adapt to something, learn information that we don't have as well. So I think there's some other theme there of trying to work together with relationships to learn new things and help us out and all of that. In addition to that, I think the last thing I'll note here is that I also consider Gemini to be a playful sign as well. I consider it to be a more playful sign because, again, it's symbolized by two young twin boys, Castor and Pollux, as well. To kind of be more playful in that regard here. Also, again, with it being a mutable sign and an air sign, the air signs are lighthearted. They're changeable. They don't take things so seriously. They don't get so emotional about some things here. So I think it's a bit more playful and maybe to emphasize that last point, not as emotional, letting go of the emotions here. So I think those are other themes that are coming up at this new moon in Gemini, trying to get a new beginning, now to bring it together, to adapt to something that we've already started, learn more information about it, make tweaks where we need to be in order to bring it more together. We're also getting a small new start here as well to kind of be more open-minded and let go of preconceived notions and communicate with people in more open-minded ways to build more connections with other people that maybe we can learn from or help us, and to have more fun with our situation and let go of any negative emotional attachments that might be holding us back here at this time. Okay, and I think that's all of the main themes I'm going to talk about for now when it comes to this new moon in Gemini. Now, before I move in to give you more specific details about this new moon itself and the specific aspects that it's making, I do want to zoom out and go back in time for a minute here to give you more of the context of how we got here before going forward. I do like to do that here because I think that the context of how we got here can actually change the interpretation in the horoscope a lot, because there's a new moon in Gemini every year. It's really the other alignments that are happening around it and before it that make the most difference. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you're not interested in that, totally fine. Sometimes it can get kind of long. You can just go ahead and skip it. I've got the timestamps down below in the description for you to move ahead into the specifics. But I'm going to start now, and I'm going to start back at the new moon solar eclipse that we just had somewhere in Aries. Where's my pen here? Somewhere in Aries. What was it now? Maybe it was like the end of March, I'll say March of this year, 2025. Okay, I want to start back there because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and it's the beginning of the astrological new year. So that's how I want to start with that. Not only that, but we also had a solar eclipse there this year, and solar eclipses are also a big deal that can bring very big, changes in that area as well. So we're going to go back to that. I also want to start there too, because I think that, sure, maybe since March, but especially in the next few months, a lot of things are going to start to change here. So we're going to start with this timeline now. What is that? Well, new moons are all about new beginnings, new energy, and fresh starts. It was a solar eclipse. They superpower that energy and make that a very significant new beginning, new energy, and fresh start that will play out here at this time. And it's in the sign of Aries. What is Aries about? Well, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, which is about a new beginning in and of itself and a fresh start here as well. So one thing that this to me was a significant new beginning, to have a new beginning, to kind of start over in our lives, or totally make everything new again in our lives and get on some different, and I think better, especially with it being conjunct the North Node, experience of life here that's going on that I think we've probably been trying to get to since 2020 about. Okay, not only that, but I also want to know other things about Aries. Aries is also a Mars ruled sign about action and about doing things here as well. So I think we are also getting a boost to do things. But again, with Aries being about new things, it was also a boost to do things in life in a very different way than we were doing them before, which is key to kind of getting into a different and better experience. And I think the different way we were doing things here was in a more Aries way. And when Aries acts, to me, it does things in ways that are easier, or that are simpler, or that are more natural, or that are based more on instinct and on passion instead of, say, structure and seriousness and responsibility and logic and all of that here as well. That's going on, which are both very important and work together. You can't have a new beginning without the new actions. So that's where I want to start here in March of 2025. We got a very significant boost to start to move again into a new, different, and better experience of life. I think we've been trying to get to since 2020 here with new and different behaviors that are simpler, that are easier, and that are based more on our natural desires and passions and instincts here in order for us to move onwards. Okay. That then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention, which is going to be the new moon. The next new moon that happened about a month later here in the sign of Taurus, April of this year of 2025. Okay, somewhere around here. Okay, new moons are also about new beginnings. Wasn't a solar eclipse, so not as significant as the Aries one, but still new beginning nonetheless. Taurus is a lot about sustaining things that we already started in Aries season here in order for them to kind of move forward. And in this case, we're trying to sustain this new and better chapter of life that we're trying to get into, and the new behaviors that are simpler and easier and more in tune with our passions here that's going on so that we could continue them forward. And not only that, but I also want to note too that Taurus is traditionally considered a slower sign because it's fixed Earth, here as well. So what that could have indicated here is that either you can choose, either we needed to go slow in order to sustain new behaviors, right? Which is why they go together, sustaining and slow. Because if you're not going slow, sometimes you can mess up the new behaviors and get ahead of yourself and things like that. Or if we weren't going slow to sustain these new behaviors, then these new behaviors just felt slow. They just felt slow because we were letting life be easy. Instead of doing busy work and doing too much and overthinking, we were one and done, simple, easy. And that was making it feel like we were doing things slower or we're stagnating here. That could have been a bit of a challenge, I think, with some other things going on around that time. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I'm going to mention, which is going to be that last full moon we had 2 weeks ago, right before this video. I think it was also in May of this year, 2025, in Scorpio. Here, a full moon in Scorpio. Okay, full moons are sometimes about stepping into things, but they're also sometimes too about ending things or completing things here as well, so that we can move on to other stuff. And Scorpio, in a lot of ways, going to have to do with fear and subconscious triggers here that we might have that are preventing us from what else? Another thing Scorpio is about, making change and stepping into our power. And I think these were fears and subconscious triggers around how slow we felt things were going, or how we felt like things were stagnating, and about this different, easier approach to life. So I think about 2 weeks ago, we started to overcome those fears around these new behaviors, simpler, easier, more in tune with our desires, and about the pace of it. However, we felt the pace was so that we could stand more in our power around this new beginning and around this different approach and do things in this simpler and easier way with more power. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I'm going to mention, which is this new moon in Gemini here, for which this video is for. Now it's May 2025. Okay, and as we discussed at the beginning of this video, this new moon in Gemini is a new beginning in adapting and adapting to something, and adapting to what? This different approach to life. This different approach, simpler, easier, more in tune with our passions, into a better experience. So we're trying to adapt more to what we are doing and learn more about it, okay, and make small tweaks. Not big tweaks, little tweaks with this different approach to kind of optimize it and make it better here, and to be more open-minded to the fact that this can work, that we can do things in a way that's simpler and easier without all the hard work and stress, and that it can happen and that we can be fine here, and to maybe connect with other people who can help us learn about the process and help here, and to have more fun, to have even more fun with this experience, and to kind of play with it instead of being so stiff here about the whole thing that's going on. Okay. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say now, I think, about this context. Maybe just to repeat that, because that's a thing I like to do. I do it a lot. I know I like to do it. What the context is of this new moon in Gemini is that we're stepping into a new, different, and better experience of life we've been trying to get to for a while. I really think since 2020 here. And we're doing it this time with new behaviors that are simpler, easier, and more in tune with our natural desires and passions here. That's going on, which is very, very good. Not only are we doing that, but it has felt a little slower than our normal pace of things because we're not doing as much as we used to do. It scared us a little, but we've recently overcome the fear around this different way of doing things in this different pace, and are standing more in our power surrounding that. And because of that, we now are trying to adapt to these new behaviors, learn more about it, be more open-minded about life and these behaviors and how we can act after this point, have more fun with it, make small tweaks with it, and connect with other people who may be able to help us learn and work with this a bit better here in our situation. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, I'm now just going to erase the chart as I just did, and I'm going to now move more into the specifics here about this energy and about this new moon in Gemini and how it's going to play out, and what aspects that this new moon in Gemini is making itself and are happening around it. So I'm going to do that. To dive into the specifics, I'm going to go ahead and just place it on the chart one more time so we can see it. Here's the new moon in Gemini, okay, which again is about us really adapting to new behaviors, especially if you watch the context, adapting to new behaviors that are simpler and easier and more in tune with our passions that are ultimately going to get us into a new, different, and better experience of life, and learning more about it and tweaking it a little bit and having more fun with it, and maybe connecting and opening our mind towards it and connecting with people who can help us maybe learn and understand it a little bit better here as well. Okay. The first thing that I want to look at here in regards to this new moon in Gemini, I think is going to be the fact that it's conjunct Mercury. Here, do you see it? The new moon, sun and the moon, conjunct Mercury right here. Okay. This to me is a very good thing to happen here with this new moon in Gemini. It's a very good thing because all of these planets are good friends. They all work together. The sun, moon, and Mercury are all considered benefic planets by the ancient astrologers, meaning they bring good things. They all like each other. In addition to that, we've got Mercury here in its home sign of Gemini. And when a planet's in its home sign, it means it likes to be there and it functions very well there than anywhere else, just like we do when we're in our own homes. We feel better there in a lot of ways. So is a very good thing that's going on, really amplifying the Gemini energy and the Mercury energy, which are correlated, and bringing out more of the positive side of it here. That's going on, okay? What might that positive be? Well, again, Mercury and Gemini are more flexible. They are more flexible. They are more adaptable, are more open-minded, are more playful about our situation. So bringing a lot of that. More of that. Maybe I'll say that. More of that more easily. Not only that, but maybe another thought that I haven't shared with you before, because I already kind of been talking about that other part in the video, is that sometimes when planets make a conjunction with each other, of course the sun and the moon, but also other ones too, they can bring new things into being. They start new cycles here. And Mercury being about our ideas could also be this bringing new ideas to us, new thoughts and new ideas to ourselves than what we've had before that's going on, that are more open-minded, I might say, about life and how life functions and how life works here too. And if you watched my context, I think that a lot of these new ideas that we're just starting to get here is about this different type of action that we've been trying to adopt for at least a few months now, which is action that's simpler, easier, more passionate, with less work, stress, responsibility, overthinking, right? So I think another thing that's going on here at this new moon is that we're starting to get a new mindset, or open our mind to a new thought and idea where we're realizing, you know what, maybe life can be easy. Maybe I can act in a simpler and easier way. Maybe life doesn't have to be hard. Maybe I don't have to overwork all the time. Maybe I don't have to stress all the time. Maybe I don't have to make life harder than it needs to be all the time. You know, I think it's us starting to get a new mindset and a new thought process there around that, especially because I think we've been conditioned by society, and we've talked about this in past videos, to believe that if we're not working hard, we're not valuable. If we're not working hard, if we're not producing something for society, we're not worthy, we're not valuable, we don't deserve things. So no, the Gemini is dismantling that, right? Because it's about being open-minded. It's this new moon conjunct Mercury is us dismantling this thought that we need to work hard in order to be valuable and always be performing and producing in order to be valuable. And it's helping us realize I can just take life a little easier and act in simpler ways, and I'm still valuable here, and I'm still fine. I'm still fine here in life, and to be more okay with that here as well. Okay, right, which in turn is going to help us adapt more to these new behaviors and be more flexible and learn more. In addition to that, Mercury, again, is also specifically too about communication, not just thoughts to ourselves, but communication with other people. So this can also too bring a new way of communicating with other people as well, especially if we're now starting to think that life can be easier and simpler. So we can start to communicate with people in different ways that maybe are also easier and simpler, or support this simpler and easier approach that it is that we're having. Not only that, but it can also bring to a lot of conversations up with other people that we may be having, that where we're just considering new ideas, just kind of spitballing with other people. Well, what about this? And have you thought about that? And maybe this, it can bring up just a lot of conversations here with other people that can be sparking just a lot of new ideas here about life, or things you want to do next in life here as well. That's going on that, can be kind of interesting, right? Gemini likes to stay interested, keep it interesting here, and be very inspiring. So I think maybe that's the first thing that I'll say here about the specifics of this new moon in Gemini, is that, we're getting a small, fresh start here to adapt, I think, to some new behaviors we've recently started to adopt that are simpler and easier and more passionate and less structured, stiff, hard work, heavy, all of that here that's going on, and to learn more about it and to make little tweaks to that here and enjoy it more, and to be more open-minded about that. And it's working. In I think a good way. It's working in a bit of a way at this new moon in Gemini here, where we are in fact beginning to adapt to this new way and be more flexible with these new behaviors, and have a little bit more fun with it. And not only where we are in fact adapting to these new behaviors and being more flexible with them and having more fun with them, but we're also becoming more open-minded, more open mentally to this different way of doing things without the old guilt and shame around it that we might have had here, and where we're getting a lot of ideas, perhaps through conversations with other people, about what we can do maybe next if we're going to do things in an easier and simpler way. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention, which is going to be that this new moon in Gemini, which is also going to include Mercury because they're so close, making a trine over here to Pluto in Aquarius here. Now, I also want to consider this as a positive thing. I'm going to say, not necessarily because Pluto's involved. Pluto to me tends to bring challenges a lot of the times, but I tend to like the trine in this instance. And there's a lot of good things going on with this new moon, a lot of good aspects. We'll talk about some more in a minute here. So I'm going to consider this a good aspect here. A trine's a fine aspect. They're both in air signs. I like it. Hey, what is this about? Well, Pluto can bring a lot of intense desire, perhaps towards something or towards an area here. It can also, when positive, bring a feeling of more strength and more inner power surrounding some sort of area in our lives as well. It's in Aquarius, an air sign just like Gemini. So this can bring a lot of ideas, a lot more than maybe we've been talking about already, a lot more ideas about what we can do in our life if we're going to do things in a simpler and easier way. Not only that, it can also bring a different vision of our future, right? Aquarius is very future oriented. It can also help us to start to see a very different vision of our future and life, and of what life would be like if we allowed ourselves to more fully embrace these simpler and easier behaviors and some of these ideas now that it is that we have here about what to do next with it here that's going on. Not only that, but I should also note too that Aquarius is very innovative, very unique, very non-traditional. So this is also helping us to drop the traditional mindset that like we have to work hard. We have to work our way up the ladder, up to the top. And Aquarius is getting rid of that and is saying we can do life. There's a new paradigm here where we can still act and get things done, but in a different way that's simpler and easier here, and helping us to be more okay with a unique idea or a unique approach to life here that's happening as well. Not only that, but remember I said Pluto can bring strength and power. So this can also help us to feel stronger, or just more empowered. Maybe I should say that by these ideas of like, and more excited of like, yeah, like Yes, I can do things simpler and easier. I see my future with it. Let's do things revolutionary. We don't need to do things the old way, the traditional way. We've done them before. And I've got now all these ideas that I'm thinking and talking about here. If I were to do things in this simpler and easier way, it's bringing a lot of good excitement, ideas, empowerment, I think, around the whole thing. Okay, so that's what I want to say there before I add on the next aspects here. At this new moon in Gemini, we are getting a small new boost to adapt to a new way of behaving in our life, simpler and easier, okay, more passionate. That's going on, and to learn more about it and make tweaks to optimize it here. And it's working. It is working. We are adapting to these new behaviors, and we are learning more about it. And we're getting lots of ideas about how we can make life even simpler and easier and work with this simpler and easier life approach to life better. Not only that, but we're also getting a new mindset here where we're allowing life to be easy and to be simpler, and are letting go of an old mindset that's telling us we have to work more or work harder in order to be valuable here. And that is bringing just a lot of making us feel more strong and more empowered in our lives and in this new approach and what we want to do, and is helping us to embrace it more and envision a different future for ourselves and our situation, and maybe have different or better conversations with other people about these things that we're doing that are more helpful to us. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention here, and it's going to be this new moon in Gemini, also making a sextile over here to both Saturn and Neptune, which recently entered the sign of Aries here as well. This to me is also an alignment that I really like a lot here too. I like it a lot because it's a sextile, and I just always interpret a sextile in a positive way. That's just me personally. So this to me is a good thing here that's going on. What is the good thing here that's happening? Well, maybe I'll start with the Saturn Neptune, because that's kind of a big deal this time around here, before we bring in the Gemini. They're both in Aries, right? That was where the eclipse was that we just had a few months ago, the new moon solar eclipse. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's about a new, different, and better experience of life. I think we've been trying to get to for a while. It's also an action sign correlated to Mars, about new and different actions here that we might need, that again are more Aries, simpler, easier, based on our passions, since Aries is a fire sign, right? And the Saturn is bringing more commitment there to that. It's also bringing more focus, and sometimes Saturn can bring, it's like the glue that keeps things together, more of a concrete focus towards something as well. So this to me is indicating that there's more of a concrete commitment towards a new experience of life and moving into that with the new behaviors it requires. Okay, it is though making a conjunction with Neptune, which in and of itself, and we were just talking about this alignment alone, can be a little hard because Neptune's an outer planet. That can still make that a little hazy, a little confusing of like, is this new and better chapter in life really here yet? Is it here yet? I don't know. Some days it is, some days it isn't, can kind of make that a little bit hazy or confusing, especially with both these things at the beginning degrees of a sign, which also can be a little early on things. There's maybe still some kind of confusion about whether or not these new different behaviors are going to work, whether or not we're really in this new different and better experience of life, whether or not it's really working. And the sextile to Gemini is going to help us with that. Okay, because remember, Gemini is about being flexible. It's about being playful. It's about having fun. It's about being open-minded. And maybe another thought, I didn't mention this earlier in the video, I should have, but Gemini is the twins, two things, duality. It's Gemini's okay with holding duality, with saying, okay, this was true yesterday. This is becoming true now, but I'm still in between. It's okay. It's okay. I'm fine. I'm not overburdened by it. So this sextile here that we're feeling from the new moon to Neptune and Saturn and Aries is really helping us to be more okay with the process, with however long it takes to do these new behaviors or to get them, handle them, or do them in the best way, is about us really being okay with the process and not being so bothered, by how long it takes or what's going on, and by us, enjoying more of the transition, being more at peace with the transition out of one thing without fully being in another here quite yet. And I think is also helping us to feel, right, a little more at peace about the situation, right, and have a little more fun with it here too. That's going on. So I think that to continue bringing it together here more and more, that what's going on at this new moon in Gemini is that we're getting a small new beginning to adapt to some new behaviors in life that we're adopting, simpler, easier, more passionate here, and learn more about it and make tweaks to optimize it. And that's working at this new moon in Gemini. We are in fact beginning to adapt to different behaviors and to learn more about it and to get ideas about how we can make tweaks to make these new behaviors better and to improve our life here. And we're getting a totally different mindset that is supporting this new experience and these new behaviors and isn't feeling so much guilt and shame about them. And that's helping us to envision a different future with it, feel strong and empowered, have lots of different conversations, and not worry so much about the process and however long it takes and where we're coming and where we're going, and to just kind of have fun. Be more in the present, be more in the present here about our situation and not get so caught up in the emotions about what has happened or will happen or what's going on, which I think is very nice. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignments that I want to mention. However, the next alignments I need to note are not specifically aspecting this new moon, but are happening around it. And one of those is going to be here, Mars in Leo, making a trine to Venus in Aries. Okay, now this alignment in and of itself, I do like as well. So a lot of things I like here about these. I like this because we've got Mars and Venus aspecting each other here, and these two planets are the lovers. They like aspecting each other because Mars is traditionally considered the masculine principle, Venus the feminine principle. And I think it's fair to say that the masculine and feminine like to be touching each other by an aspect like this, and have a lot of chemistry here when they do, and right, a trine's a fine aspect. So I think that this, I want to like it here. Now, I know that Venus doesn't really like to be in Aries, I'm aware, okay? But Venus did go retrograde here in Aries, not at this degree, at the earlier degree. So I think it kind of changed things for the better a little bit. So I'm going more positive on this here. What is that? Mars is about action. It's about doing things here. It's in Leo. Leo is about courage. It's about risk taking. It also too is about our passions, being a fire sign and things that make us happy and acting more on that here. It's connecting to Venus and Aries. Aries as well as a Mars ruled sign about action. It's also about that simpler approach to life. I've mentioned a few times, doing things in a way that's simpler, easier, more passionate. Okay, so a lot of that. And Venus is a lot about rest and ease and calm. So acting in ways that are more easy, more calm, more restful, or that are coming more naturally without pushing and forcing and working so hard in order to make things happen. And this is a good thing, indicating that coming together here of us taking action, more action on stuff we're excited about, so we're passionate about, simpler and easier ways, and it working here to help us feel better and to maybe make a little bit of progress here, a little bit of progress in our situation. Now, do I feel like this is the whole enchilada, the whole progress that we need to get into some different, better experience of life? I'm still going to say no on that. I'm still going to say no on that for a few reasons. I'm going to say no on that because this is a new moon in Gemini. New moons are, remember, they're small beginnings that aren't fully seen yet. And Gemini too has to do with a lot of little things. It's ruled by Mercury, a very little planet, a lot of little things here. And we still need like Jupiter to enter Cancer, which it will do soon. Here, the full moon in Sagittarius, very big, 2 weeks from now. So this is still not huge progress, everything we want done happening, but this is us doing little things, a few little things in simpler and easier ways, okay? And it freaking working and coming together here, which is nice. So what that means to me to continue bringing it together before I add, I think I've got 2 more things I want to mention here. What I think is going on at this new moon in Gemini is that we're getting a new beginning, a new start here to adapt to some new behaviors in life that we've recently started to get, where we do things in ways that are simpler, easier, and more passionate here. That's going on, and to learn more about it and to tweak it here and optimize it as we need. And that is working. that is working at this new moon in Gemini. We are, in fact, adapting to these new and different behaviors and learning a lot about them and getting tons of ideas about how we can continue to do things in ways that are simpler and easier and tweak it that we need. Not only that, but we're also starting to open our mind up to this simpler and easier way of doing things here as well, without the guilt and shame here of all this other stuff that's going on. And we're starting to envision a future with it and are feeling more empowered about the whole thing and stronger in this simpler and easier approach to life that's helping us to feel more at peace and more at ease and kind of, have more fun with the process. And not only that, but to continue doing things in an easier and simpler way. And in this easier and simpler way to continue doing things and to see it just work more, to bring not everything together that we want, but a few more small things together here to help us move onwards. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention here that's going on, which is related to the Mars and Venus I was just talking about. And that's because Venus, as you can see, is getting awfully close here, is getting awfully close to Chiron within 5 degrees. And Mars too is close to that trine to Chiron here as well. Okay, and that's a challenge. Venus conjunct Chiron, Mars trine it here. That's a challenge to me. Why is that a challenge? What's a challenge? Because Chiron is difficult. Chiron tends to do with fears or insecurities or triggers or things of that sort here as well. And I still am keeping in mind, even though I do like it better since it went retrograde in Aries, but Venus is still in Aries, a sign it doesn't like to be in either. So this to me can be a little bit hard here. What can this bring? Well, sure. I should note this can bring fears, fears. This can bring fears. Okay, Chiron is typically a symbol of that. Here, is that how I want to interpret this horoscope for this new moon in Gemini? No, not in particular. Why is that? Well, if you watched my horoscope 2 weeks ago at that full moon in Scorpio, we talked a lot about fears, especially around this new approach to life and overcoming those fears. So sure, some of you may still have fears around this new approach to life because it feels slower, it feels different, whatever. But I think that was more 2 weeks ago. I don't think that this is manifesting as fear. I think what I'm going to go more with is like exhaustion or a feeling of like being worn out with the process. Maybe that's what I'm feeling more with this, with the process and with how it's going, something along those lines, especially with Venus too, being a little bit of a slower, and being symbolizing things being a little bit slower, right? Especially if we're not fully where we want to be yet. We're taking a bunch of little steps, but the big kahuna, the big step to get us to where we want to be as a result of these new actions hasn't really happened yet. So I don't think that this is like fear that we're never going to get to where we want to be, even though some of you could still be feeling that. Okay. And if that resonates with you, take that. But I think that this is a little bit more of like exhaustion of like, I'm doing things in a simpler and easier way. I'm more on board with it. I'm getting it. I'm accepting it. It is working, but it's like this soul level exhaustion of like, but it hasn't worked fully yet. It hasn't worked fully yet in the way that I might like to fully get me to where I want to go. And it's this feeling of like, man, it's just taken forever. It's still kind of taken forever, or it still feels like a little slower yet, or not where I want to be, or like, I just don't know if it's going to work yet. I think there's like this feeling there of like, I just don't know if it's going to work. That might really be starting to weigh on us here in our situation, and could maybe even make us want to act in a little bit of weird ways here, which could be, you don't want to say maybe, I'm not feeling this super strongly, but could make us want to momentarily kind of force or push things again with the Aries influence and the Mars here and come out of this like simpler, easier place, or may make us want to overwork here again in our situation and throw us back into too much busy work and taking on too much here that's going on, or working too hard about our situation that's happening. So I think that's where I'm going to go with that here. Is that what it's bringing? Okay. Although fatigue, for some reason, fatigue to me, and it's not, maybe I need to linger on that because I don't feel like I don't know if there's like a physical fatigue. Like I feel like some of us have the physical stamina of like, I want to do more. I want to do more. So I'm not talking about physical fatigue. I'm talking more about like a spiritual fatigue of like, I'm doing things in this different way, but it's still taking its sweet freaking time. It's still, and I'm just tired of it taking time. I'm not afraid that it's taking long anymore. I'm just tired of it taking long. I'm tired of, I want to be where I want to be already now. I'm getting that it's more of that here that's just a little hard for us to kind of reckon with at this time. So what that means to me, to bring that together here at this new moon in Gemini, is that we are trying to adapt to new, different behaviors in life that are simpler, easier, more passionate, more in tune with ourselves here, and to learn more about it and to tweak and optimize those a tiny bit as we need. And that is in fact working. We are in fact at this new moon doing it, adapting to these new behaviors and learning more about these new behaviors and getting a lot of ideas about how we can do things in a simpler and easier way. Not only that, but we also too are getting a totally new mindset that's more accepting of this simpler and easier way without the guilt and shame that's surrounding it here, and envisioning a different future with it and feeling more strong and empowered in this different approach to life. That's simpler and easier, and are feeling just and are starting to have more fun with the process here and what's going on. But even though we are right and have more fun, not only are we having more fun, but we're also doing more things. I think doing more things in this simpler and easier way, a few little things that are working and coming together. Okay? But even though we're adapting to this new approach and we're doing things and they are working, even though if they are little things, we're starting to get a little frustrated that it hasn't worked fully yet, that it's working a little, but not fully yet to get us to where we need to be here, or that we aren't right exactly at the end result yet. And I think we're getting like tired of waiting, of it taking so long to be where we need to be, which is frustrating and could potentially make some of us either want to push and force things after this point to go quicker and faster, or if not push and force things, then to add more work on our plate here and to make our actions harder and more effort and more responsible, which is not really what we need to be doing here. That can be frustrating. Okay, that then leads me on the last thing I'm going to mention here in terms of the aspects that's going on, which is also going to be the advice. I'm going to give you some of the advice with this as well. And that's going to be Jupiter here in the sign of Gemini, making a square to the nodal axis around this new moon here, the south node in Virgo, as well as the north node here in Pisces. Okay. Now, this in some ways can also be a challenge here too, because it's a planet square the nodal axis. Okay. And a planet square the nodal axis, according to evolutionary astrology by Jeffrey Wolf Green, which is what I do, is also called a skipped step here. And what happens when you get a skip step is that you get the planet that's being squared. That's the skip step here. We tend to skip it. We tend to not do it enough or nearly to the extent that it is that we need here that's going on. And we tend to not do it because this planet that's being squared or skipped is halfway in between the south node and halfway in between the north node. So it gets confused. What do I do? Do I do the south node? Do I do the north node? I'm 50-50. I could go either way. Here. So we tend to not do it. And because we're not really doing that either at all, that planet, or enough, we tend to feel stuck and stagnate. And like we're still not where we want to be, or like it's still just taking some time here that's going on. That can be a bit hard. So this to me is another indicator, right? That even though we are making progress, right, towards a different experience with new behaviors, and that even though we are doing things, there's still this feeling of like, I'm doing things, I think it's working, but I'm still not there. Like I'm still not there and I'm just frustrated. Like what more do I need to do? How much more long does it need to take? I'm doing everything. That's going on. That can be a bit hard. Okay, but even though this is a bit of a challenge here and can indicate that it also comes naturally with advice because of the evolutionary astrology paradigm that I follow here. And the advice on how to resolve this so that we get unstuck here. I'm going to give you two different thoughts here. Part of the advice is to do more of the planet that's being squared or skipped, right? Because that's the thing we're not doing. This is the thing we're not doing enough and that we're hesitating to do, causing us to be stuck. So the first piece of advice I'll give you is to do that. How do you do that? Well, it's just a matter of conscious choice. A lot of times here, you have to make a choice, especially for 50-50 between things. You have to make a choice to get off the fence here and to do something more. What is it that needs to be done more? Well, it's the Jupiter in Gemini, right? Which is the same sign that new moon is in. That is what this whole video is for. So what that indicates to me is that what we're not doing enough is the whole Gemini thing that this whole video is about. We are doing it. Don't get me wrong. We are doing it. Especially this time. We are doing it. But we're doing it a little bit, and we need to be doing it a whole lot more that we need to choose to do more of. What, again, do we need to choose more of? Well, we need to choose more to what? Adapt. Adapt to this new experience of life and these new actions, simpler and easier. Okay? Adapt more to that. What does that mean? In some ways, it means do things in more of a simpler way and more of an easier way. Not back out of the simpler, easier way and push and force. Okay? Not that. Not make things harder and add more work on your plate and do more. No. Okay, this is not adapt to those behaviors. This is adapt to more simple, more easy, more passion. Adapt to that. Get more used to that. Get more familiar, more familiar, because we're not familiar with it enough, apparently. Okay, not only that, there's also the thing about gathering facts, gathering information, right? With the Gemini, we're not doing that enough. Especially, I should even note before I go further, we've got Jupiter here, the biggest planet, making this good step. It's like more huge. There's like multiple indicators of like huge Gemini energy, way more than normal. We need more. We're not doing enough. We got to bring more of that into it. Okay. The other thing Gemini is about gathering facts, gathering information, learning. So that's maybe another thing that you all might need to be doing is learning more about your situation and about this simpler and easier approach and about how you can do things in more of a simpler, easier way and what that might look like, and to consider thoughts and ideas there on how you can work with that even better. Okay. And to go down that rabbit hole, not ideas of like, well, maybe I need to back out and work more and be harder and push more. No, not ideas about how you can push harder, work more. No, ideas about if I were to do what I'm doing in an even simpler way and an even easier way, what would those ideas be? What would that be like? Okay, more on those lines. Not only that, but more flexibility is needed as well with the Gemini being a mutable sign, more tweaks. And these aren't, right, to me, flexibility means making tweaks to your situation. And these aren't big tweaks. These aren't blow everything up and start back over at square one. No, Gemini's a lot of little things. You need to make a lot of little tweaks. How can you currently do what you're already doing in this simpler and easier way? How can you tweak it a teensy bit to make it even easier, to make it even simpler and kind of play with it a little bit till you figure that out, okay? Another thing, remember, Gemini is also about the playfulness here that's going on, having more fun. So another thing that we need to do way more of is to have more fun with it. Things being simpler and easier should not be the life sentence. Things being simpler and easier is meant to be funner, meant to give you more time to do other things you want to do. You know, you need to have more fun with this process and enjoy it, especially because this simple and easy way of life is not a temporary thing, right? Some of you are treating it like it's a temporary thing. Some of you are saying, oh, I'll do things simpler and easier for like a week or two. And then like next month, I'll go back to the old hard way, hard work, responsibility. No, this is not temporary. If you think this is temporary, you got another thing coming. This is meant to be permanent, doing things in this simpler and easier way. So you got to adapt to it. And you got to start having fun with it and not waiting for it to be over or think it's going to be done, you know, here. And you need to stop being simple and easy to get a result, right? Maybe that's why some of you are doing. I'm going to be simple and easy until I get the result that I want. And then I'm going to go back to the old. No, you need to be simple and easy is not the end result. It's the journey. It's a way of life. And you need to accept it, adapt to it, figure it out more, have more fun with it. Here, that's going on. Okay. Right? Because that's what the adapting to something is. Adapting to something is not, I'll just do it now and then later I'll forget about it. It's you're getting used to it so you can do it more later. Okay, not only that, but the ideas and belief systems. Let's talk about that. Gemini is a lot about our ideas. It's more open-minded. We've got Jupiter there, excuse me. Jupiter is the planet of our belief systems. It does not like to be in Gemini. Why does it not like to be in Gemini? Because Gemini doesn't care about your beliefs. It cares about your facts and your information. here and all of that. So another thing we're not doing enough is not dismantling Jupiter, our old beliefs, our old traditional beliefs about the way things are or should be here. We're not dismantling and we're not changing our mind enough to this new approach, especially as new thoughts, facts, information, ideas come into being here. So we need to be more open-minded here about what is possible for life and about how life can be after this here that's going on, because we're not going back. We're not, again, there's no such thing as going back in life to the way things were. We're not going back. Okay, we're only going forward here. So we have to become more open-minded to what is coming and let go more of any old ideas, beliefs, and thoughts of the way life was or should be here that's happening, and any attachments that you might have to go. You got to let go of the attachments, right? Gemini doesn't get attached to things. You got to let go of these attachments. Not only that, but Gemini 2 is about the communication here as well. So there's maybe not enough communication that's happening. You're not communicating enough about some of the things that you're doing, because some of you might need the help of other people to accomplish what you want to do, right? And how are people going to help you accomplish what you want to do if they don't know what you're doing? So you might need to communicate more consistently, more regularly, not just every once in a while, not just on occasion. Communicate more consistently so that the right people can find you, and communicate in ways that are more open-minded or more based on facts here, and less on the old beliefs or old ideas or old ways of doing things as well here that's going on. So there's a big need to consciously choose to do more of all of those things here that's going on, that's happening. Not only that, but another piece of advice that I'll give you too is that according to evolutionary astrology, another way to work out a step is not just to consciously choose to do the planet being squared, but it can also be as well to consciously choose to do the node that the planet being squared last touched before this happened. And I guess the theory on that is the node that the planet last touched, that planet is more familiar with that energy, right? Because it most recently touched it before it made this conjunction, and therefore can work through that energy more easily. And in this case, it's the North Node, because what was it? Like a few years ago, Jupiter was in a conjunction here with the North Node at some point. Okay, and the North Node's now here in Pisces. Okay, what is Pisces about? Well, Pisces is a lot about resting, is a lot about taking it easy, not about forcing things. It's about resting, a lot about taking it easy. Not only that, it's also too about trusting in spirit, God, universe, whatever you believe in the timing of things, and being patient. It's a sign of patience here. It's also too a sign of creativity and of compassion for everybody, for yourself, for other people too here, and going with the flow of things instead of making things harder. So if it's hard for you to just flat out choose, I'm going to choose to adapt to this new experience, it's simpler and easier, and to be flexible and to make more tweaks with it, and to adjust my mindset and to have more fun with it and communicate. If that's hard for you, or if that still doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. Then just choose to rest a little bit more here, to trust more in the process and be more patient, to be more compassionate to yourself and others, or to be more creative here that's going on, because that is naturally going to help you. That's naturally going to help you to cultivate more of these Gemini traits, because the more that you rest, you're going to say, oh, this isn't so bad. I can have fun with this. Or the more you rest, you're going to get ideas. Or the more that you trust in the universe, a higher power, right? You might get a divine inspiration, about what you need to do and to tweak something that's going on. Or by you being compassionate to yourself, it might then help you with a different belief system, to let go of these old traditional beliefs, which I think were rather rigid here, and to come into a different way of thinking and communicating here about your life that it is that you need to kind of turn things around here that's going on. So I think that's the advice of needing to choose to do more of what's happening at this new moon in Gemini than you may naturally be inclined here to do it. Now, why? One more thought here before I summarize this. Why? I got to tell you, we're extremely close. If you've been watching my videos for a while, I've been giving you a time frame of July as things turning around in our lives to be new, different, and better, especially since 2020. Well, July is a little over a month away Okay, it's coming. It's so soon. Not only that, but I think 2 weeks from now at that full moon in Sagittarius, good things are going to start to happen as well, because Sagittarius is a sign of gifts and good luck. And Jupiter's going to be, I'm pretty sure Jupiter's going to be in Cancer by that time as well, exalted. It's sign of exaltation there too. So so we're so close is what I'm trying to say. We are so close to these actions working, to something very good happening. And the last thing you want to do now is give up or fall back into old habits and behaviors. You need to consciously choose to continue on this path just a little bit longer than maybe feels comfortable or natural here, because in a month's time here, I think you're going to start to see this pay off if you just don't get tired and discouraged of it now and discard it. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, I'm now just going to repeat that one last time here without the jargon. So let me do that. What I think is going on here at this new moon in the sign of Gemini is that we're trying to adapt to new and different behaviors in our life, where we do things, yes, but in ways that are simpler, easier, and based more on our passions here, and to learn more about that experience and tweak it and optimize it a little bit to be more effective. And at this new moon in Gemini, I think we are in fact having some success doing that, adapting to these new behaviors, learning a lot about it, getting lots of ideas about how we can do things in simpler and easier ways, and making a few tweaks, which is helping us to envision a different future for ourselves, get totally different beliefs and ideas about our life and what's possible without the guilt and the shame, feel stronger and more empowered, and to have more fun in the moment, and to make a little bit of progress, maybe not huge progress, but a little bit of progress on things that are important in our lives in ways that it is that we need, which is great. But even though we are adapting and adjusting and feeling more empowered in this slower and in this simpler and easier approach, and even though it is working little by little to bring more things together, I think deep down we're starting to feel a little tired. And I don't mean physically tired. I think physically tired, a lot of us are fine, but I think we're starting to feel spiritually and emotionally tired of acting in this simpler and easier way, because it hasn't yielded the full results yet that we want to make our lives better and to turn our lives around to be different, better, and easier. That's going on, which is maybe making us start to doubt it a little bit, that this simpler and easier approach is ever going to get us to where we want to be, and maybe making us feel fall out of these simpler and easier behaviors because maybe we think they're not working, either back into behaviors where we're pushing and forcing things to go faster and be more, or where we're not pushing and forcing things, but where we're doing things in ways that are stressful, hard work, a lot of effort, not that fun, that require a lot of effort and responsibility that's going on, that can then frustrate us and cause us to stagnate here. That's going on and just feel a little stuck. That can be hard. And the reason why we feel like we're stagnating and are being stuck here is not because we're stagnating, and is not because we're stuck. It's just because we need to go a little bit longer in this different approach, is because we need to just go a few more days, a few more weeks, a month more in this different approach that's slower and easier, not give up and adapt to it more and be more and more flexible with it and adjust our mindset to it more and have more fun with it here that's going on that we're not doing because we're getting tired. And the way to resolve that is to either consciously choose to adapt to it more, be more flexible, gather more information, be more open-minded, and have more fun. Or if not, choose to do that directly, then to choose to rest, be at ease, be more compassionate to yourselves and others, and trust more in the process here, because that'll get you to where you need to go here and help you to continue in this process, which will bring very, very, very good things to you just right around the corner. Okay, and that's it, because that's it. Now what I like to do at this point in the video is to just say a few more things about this new moon in Gemini, but in a more conversational way here, because when I go through the aspects, I can't really say what I want to say. I have to kind of keep on track here. So I now like to just kind of go off the cuff here and just say some other things that might be coming to me about the energy. Where do I want to start? I don't usually plan this ahead of time, so I never know what really is going to come to me. I think the main thing, maybe I want to keep this simple. I feel like another thought I have is like sometimes going through the aspects one by one makes the energy way more complicated than it actually really is. And I think this concept is actually really simple. Okay, so let's make this really simple for you here right now. What is going on at this new moon in Gemini? Okay, let me go step by step. We are moving forward we are doing things in a different way that's simpler, easier, and more passionate, right? That's the main point here. Doing things in a way that's simpler, easier. Okay, excuse my chicken scratch. This is really just for me, so I don't lose track of where I'm at. Okay, we're doing things in a way that's simpler and easier. Okay, that's going on. Okay, what's the next point that to me is relevant about this energy? We're doing it and it's working. It's working. Maybe I'll say that. We're doing it. It's working. All of that. Yeah. It's working. Okay. What's the next thought then that comes to me about this new moon? What's the problem? The problem is that we're just not doing it enough. Okay. I think that's really what this new moon is about. Okay. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort to make things very simple. Here, this new moon in Gemini, we are doing things in a simpler and easier way, taking action in a simpler, easier way, which we've been learning to do for the past few months, and it is working. It's working. It's working. Whether you believe it or not, I know it is. I know it's working. It's working. Maybe not in a huge way, maybe not in all the big ways that you want it to work, but it is working. It is working underneath the surface in the ways that matter most, okay? And I think the problem at this new moon in Gemini here is that we want to give up. It's like there's a sense of like wanting to give up or wanting to cut the process short or not wanting to commit to like following through. It's like there's some kind of energy there with that. Right? Give up and not follow through. And some of that may link back to the Gemini energy for a minute. Let me talk about that. Gemini is a mutable sign, right? And we typically think of mutable signs as like transitioning out of something, right, and into another, which is true because a lot of astrology is based on the seasons, okay? And the mutable signs are usually the last sign of a season, okay? That's going on. And Gemini in this case, especially because most of astrology is based on the northern hemisphere, is the last sign of spring. Okay, before summer starts, when we have the summer solstice, which is the first, when the sun enters Cancer, the first day of Cancer season here, okay? And in that regard, Gemini, yes, is the transition out of spring and into summer here. That's going on, okay? But even though Gemini season is the transition out of spring and into summer, it's still the same part of the it's still a part of the astrological year. It's not ending something altogether, right? Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, also mutable, okay? It's the last sign of the zodiac. It sure is about transitioning out of winter and into spring, but being the last sign of the zodiac, it's also a sign of like permanent endings, like the final goodbye. Gemini is not that. Gemini is, yes, a transition, but not a final ending to something, especially with it being here during the first season of the year, spring, okay, when new life happens. Okay, Gemini is about transitioning from something being planted in spring to something taking root in summer. So the Gemini here is not like, let's get out of, is not saying like, let's be so flexible that we stop doing this simpler and easier approach. The Gemini is saying, let's be so flexible that we do this simpler and easier approach more so that it takes root. Do you see? I do. I believe that astrology is based so much on like the farming and the seasons. Spring is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, okay? Because Aries is the beginning of the astrological year. And that makes sense because that's when you plant new stuff. Why would the beginning of the new year be in winter when everything's dead and dying? Okay, that doesn't make sense that it would be that way. Okay, it's spring, planting. Okay, Gemini is leading to Cancer when you start to see things actually take root and grow really big. So The point here of this new moon in Gemini is not to give up, is not to be so flexible that we give up on doing things in this simpler and easier way, and to be so flighty we get out of it. No, the point of this new moon in Gemini is that we be flexible enough with this different approach, these different actions that are simpler and easier, so that we continue in it, so that it can take root and grow more. Okay? Here, that's the point of it. That's why it's meant to be happening here. Okay? And tweaking it so that it can work more instead of work less. And I think with maybe some of the mutableness of Gemini and the flightiness, we want to get out of it and we don't need to. So this is my thought process here about the new moon in Gemini. We are to back up now, we are doing things ways that are simpler and easier in life. And it is in fact working to help us manifest things in our life that are important, but it hasn't finished yet. It hasn't finished working yet because we're in a transitory phase, Gemini mutable. It hasn't finished working yet. And because it hasn't finished working yet, we're not seeing the full results yet. We're not seeing the big growth yet that comes in Cancer season yet that it is that we want. And so we're getting, what is it? The Gemini mercurial about, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I should back out. Maybe I should just stop. I don't know. I mean, is it working? Is it not? I don't know. And we're backing out and we're not following through and finishing the drill with these new behaviors and following them to the very end. Here, that's going on. That can create a problem. Okay? What kind of problem can it create if we don't follow through on these new behaviors here that's happening? What kind of problem can it create? Well, sure, it can create some sort of problems like us falling backwards into old habits and patterns that we talked about, okay? What are the old habits and patterns? Well, it's the opposite of things being simple and easy. It's things being complicated and hard and a lot of work and a lot of effort. It's the opposite of things being done based on our passion, where they're done more on responsibility and structure and tradition and what logically makes sense. You know, we may fall back into those old habits and patterns, okay? And that can be frustrating. Right? It's falling back into those and feeling very frustrated because does it feel good to do a lot of work? Does it feel good to do a lot of things you don't want to do just because you think you should do them? No. So the consequence here of us not following through on this is one, falling back into old habits and patterns, overwork, complicated stress, anxiety. That's very frustrating. Not only is that a consequence, but if we don't follow through, there's another consequence, and this is the more important one. The other consequence is us not getting to where we want to be, is not getting to a new, different, and better experience of life that we've been trying to get to since 2020 that I have been talking about in a lot of my videos for these whole past 5 years. Not getting there. We're not going to get there. So not only if we don't follow through, may we fall back into these old habits and patterns, which are frustrating in and of themselves, a lot of work, a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility. But these old habits and patterns are not going to get you to where you need to go, are never going to get you to where you need to go. And they're going to cause you to remain stuck forever. Back in these old habits and patterns, back in 2020 to 2025, or maybe even far beyond that, it's going to cause you to stay stuck and to not be able to move forward into different and better things that it is that you really want to be at. Okay? Which are so close. Why is it going to cause you to be stuck? Okay. I don't know how well the connection here has been made in this horoscope and in my last ones that I've been doing, but there's something about a new, different, and better experience of life, okay, that we've been trying to get to since 2020 that absolutely requires this new, different, and way of behaving. They go hand in hand, okay? You can't have a new, different, and better experience of life if you're still doing things in the old, tiring, frustrating way. Do you understand? If you want something you've never gotten before, you have to do something you've never done. Do you see here? They go hand in hand. You can't say, oh, I'm going to get a new, different, and better experience of life, but do everything that you've used to been doing. It's simply not going to work here. That's happening. Okay. And I think the old way of life is the old way of life in which we've been overworked, overstressed, told we have to do what everyone else is doing or be responsible instead of actually listening to our heart, what our soul says, what our intuition says, what is right for us as individuals, right? We've been doing all these other things here. That's been going on here. That's the problem. So right? And that's the old life. The old life we've been trying to escape has been a life where we've been living life by everyone else's standards, everyone else's expectations, or what we think we should do to be respected and valued, instead of what is best for ourselves as individuals and what is true to our heart. Do you see? And that's the whole difference. That's what we're coming out of, and that's what we're moving into. And that's what these behaviors are changing. When you start to do things simpler, easier, more in tune with your passions, it means you're rejecting the narrative that life has to be hard and complicated and responsible, and you have to do what everyone else does just because you should do it, So in order to get into this new experience of life, you must have these new behaviors, which is going to make the new life better, and is going to make the new life different, and is going to make the new life worth it, because you're actually doing things that are easier and fun and that you want to do for a change. Okay. So I think there's also the thought here that I really need to note is that at this new moon in Gemini, we are starting to accept more of different behaviors, simpler and easier, and more in tune with our passions, and embrace them. And it is working. It is working, but it's in the process of working. Mutable, Gemini, transition. It hasn't finished working yet. And because it's in the process of working and hasn't finished working yet, we're getting discouraged. We're getting discouraged, and our mind is maybe going a little crazy. Well, maybe we should do something else, or maybe it isn't working, or maybe I'm just tired, or maybe something's just going wrong with me. And maybe we need to do something else, which may cause some of you to fall back into old behaviors, pushing and forcing or overwork. And if you do that, the consequence of that is going to be you're feeling really frustrated, because that's a heavy stuff to just do stuff because you have to do them. And not only are you going to feel really frustrated, you're never going to get into a new, different, and better experience of life that you want to be in, because the new and better experience of life requires that you have new and different behaviors in order to get there. Okay. Especially ones that are simpler, easier, and more in touch with your heart for a change. Okay. So that's why we have to keep going. And a reason why I sometimes like to say this too is because every once in a while I'll hear people say, oh, I'm just stuck in life. I'm stuck in life. I don't know why I'm stuck. I can never move forward here. And I do believe, especially seeing how the astrology has gone to the past 5 years, that there are times in life where we do feel stuck, where we are destined to feel stuck in order to work things out within our soul and to process things. But I think there are other times in life when we're not meant to be stuck here, but we think we're stuck because we're not doing what's needed to move forward. We're not doing what's needed here, and we're not seeing clearly. And I think that we're coming up to a time in the next 2 months where something significant can change in your life. Something very significant can finally change in your life after being stuck. And I don't want some of you to get there 2 months from now and look around and be confused. I don't want some of you to get to 2 months from now when it's the time we're going to be talking about getting unstuck in my horoscope, and you'd be like, well, nothing's happening for me. Why? I'm confused. I don't know. I'm telling you right now, if you're getting to 2 months from now and you're stuck in your life and you're still in a bad situation and you don't have any insights and you're not where you need to be, it's because of this. It's because you're not acting in ways that are simpler and easier and more based on your passions, and you're not letting yourself rest and be at ease, and you're still trying to overwork, trying to do too much, trying to live by everyone else's rules and expectations, and trying to do things in the traditional way that society thinks you should do it in order to be valued and respected, and chasing money and status, which is also part of the whole thing as well that we've talked about in other videos. That's the reason why. Okay. If you're stuck, then this is the reason why. And there's no reason to be stuck 2 months from now when you can just fix it now. And when we're so close. And I think that's another thought here too that's going on. Maybe if this things changing for the better in our lives was another year away, I could understand some fatigue, getting exhausted of like, is this going to work? This new way of doing things? I don't know. But it's literally like a few weeks away. It's not even that far, so to give up now with this different approach when we're so close, it would be ridiculous. You know what I mean? It would be so silly to have happen when we're so close, it's like I'm envisioning like someone running towards a finish line, and they're literally like 10 10 seconds away from the finish line and then stopping the race, stopping running, taking themselves out because they don't know if it's going to work and they're just so tired. And it's like, come on, we're so close. Don't give up now with this simpler and easier approach. Keep going with it here. That's happening, and see it to the end. Don't give up when you're so close. Okay. And the idea is not for this experience. Another thought I had, the idea is not of this experience of like it taken so long to be at the finish line, even though we're really close, is not for it to break us. And in the past 5 years, I do believe have been hard. The whole idea was not for the past 5 years to break us, to break our spirit, to make it so that we feel so heavy and hurt. The idea, I think, of the past 5 years has been not to break us, but for us to bend, right? To bend and not break, to be more flexible here and to start to adjust our mindset, our approach to life, how we do things to be different. And I think that's important here as well with the new moon in Gemini being a mutable sign. Mutable signs to be more flexible, right? I think we can argue flexible, bendy, right? Flexible with the body. The whole idea here, this hardship of the past few years wasn't to break us. It was to help us bend, to get out of our rigid ideas, rigid beliefs, rigid ways of doing things, and of the way we think things should be done, and into a different way. And we now need to, at this new moon in Gemini, continue with this simpler, easier approach and adapt to it more. And maybe in another way, bend to it more, bend to it more, and let go more of the old things that are kind of keeping us stuck. So I think maybe that's what I'll say here. Yeah, is that what's coming to me? I don't know if I have anything else. Yeah, this new moon in Gemini, we are doing things in a way that's simpler and easier and more in tune with our passions, which is key, fundamental to creating new, different, and better experiences in our life, which are right around the corner, weeks away here. And it is working. Okay, but even though it's working, we're not fully there yet to where we need to be to have everything come together in the way that we might like. And because it's working, but we're not fully there yet, we're getting discouraged, spiritually tired of this whole thing because we're not where we want to be yet. And it's taken us since 2020 to get here, which may cause us to not want to continue anymore, to not want to continue to do things in a simpler and easier way here that's going on, and to just stay stuck, or to fall back into pushing and forcing things, or overwork here, or making things harder than it is than they need to be. And that's a problem. That's a problem because us either staying stuck or falling backwards is going to be really frustrating because we're going to stay stuck and we're going to be in habits that we don't like. And not only is bad because of that, but also too because it's never going to get us to where we need to be and to where we want to be. That's so much better, which requires these new behaviors and which is so close. And for us to stop now when we're weeks away from where we want to be, seconds away from the finish line, so to speak, metaphorically, would be a shame. It would be a shame. It would be so sad. We have to keep going in this different approach, and we have to do whatever we can to encourage ourselves. Maybe that's the thought. We need to keep going in this simpler and easier approach, and we need to do whatever we can to encourage ourselves to keep going in this different way, and to adapt to it, and to work with it more, because the whole point of the past few years and how hard they were wasn't to break us so that we would never be able to move forward. Here it was to have us bend, to shift, to make adjustments within ourselves and the way we behave and the way we do life so that we can start again in a better way, And now is the time to keep going in this different approach. And maybe another thought here too, but I think I'm going to give you examples and then I'll do the inside degree and play your card. Maybe another thought here too. Not only is now about, you have to keep going in this different approach and you have to adapt to it more, but I'm also getting a sense of like, how does this make sense for the Gemini energy? I'm getting a thought of like, finally shifting everything, finally shifting a lot of the internal shifts here that's going on. Maybe not external shifts, especially because Gemini, Gemini is more of a mental sign. I think there's also a need for a lot of internal shifts here to take place. It's not just about continuing, even though a big part of it is continuing in this simpler and easier way. There's also something about this new moon in Gemini that's about shifting every internal part of yourself. Mentally, I even think emotionally here as well, away from the old to prepare for the new growth, and to prepare for what is to come here too. It's a little bit of both, of like, keep going, doing things simpler and easier, and don't give up. So stay in the simpler and easier approach. And also, while you're staying in the simpler and easier, or continuing in the simpler and easier approach, shift more completely the way you think about life and the way you feel about life to embrace this different approach, so that you're not holding it at arm's length, so that you're more permanently doing things in the simpler and easier way, and more permanently embracing it intellectually, and more permanently embracing it emotionally. And I'm going to say emotionally, even though Gemini is not a water sign, because Gemini, remember, it's not attached to things emotionally. So it's going to let go of the emotional attachment to the old things, even though more of the more full emotional attachment to the new things might not come till the new moon in Cancer or Cancer season here, but I'm getting a sense of that too. And what also that is giving me is a sense of preparation, internal preparation for what is to come, because I do think that something very positive has the potential to occur in the next few weeks. July has been the time that I've been mostly sticking with here. And I think the new moon in Gemini is also too about mentally preparing for that, and internally preparing for that as well, so that when the good things do happen in July, we're not pushing them away. We're not pushing them away and saying, oh, no, that couldn't happen to me. Or, oh, no, I don't deserve that. Or, oh, no, that's too good for me. That's too easy for me. That's too simple. I don't deserve these. I think there's also a thing about this new moon in Gemini, not only saying, keep going in the simpler and easier way, and don't give up, commit. Keep making it happen, more simple, more easy. But I think there's also something about this new moon in Gemini as well, saying, and start to shift your internal world, emotions and mindset more towards the bounty, more towards the good things coming, more towards these good things are about to grow, because they are. And because when they do happen, you'll be more willing and more able to receive them here too. So I think there's another thought as well, and needing to shift and adjust your internal world towards that, and to be more open-minded about that as well. And maybe to linger on the open-minded part, if when I say open-minded and closed-minded, I think that applies, sure, to the old way of doing things. I think the old way of doing things, we were closed-minded. I think the old way of doing things too, I think we were closed-minded to doing things in new ways. And so I think that is part of it, right? I think for a while, a lot of us were closed-minded to resting and being at ease. We thought that was silly, that was never going to work, and that the only way to do things was traditional money, status, hard work, all of that. And so I think we have started to shift our mindset to realize, okay, maybe like rest and ease doesn't make us bad or whatever, and isn't like we can do that. And I think there's a need to shift more in that direction, our mind, but also to shift our mindset more towards the good things that can come. I think there might also be a need to start to think a little more about that, instead of dwelling, especially with the trine to Aquarius that the new moon is making, instead of dwelling on the past and the things that didn't work. I think there's also a need to start to shift our mindset towards the future and the fact that things can work, and to start to be more hopeful and envision that, because sometimes too, just a vision of things getting better can also help to bring more things together and to align more too. So I think there's a thought there as well. Okay. Not only that, but on the mindset thing here too, maybe another thought in terms of like the collective in a world event, like situations. I don't like to make too many comments on that. I'm really not going to make a big statement on that now, but this can also indicate a lot of people changing their minds about where they stand on politics, on world events, becoming more open-minded, taking in different information, taking in more facts here as well. So there can also be a shift there in people coming out of rigid ideas and beliefs. Okay, rigid ideas and beliefs here, that's going on. So there can also be a big shift with that. Okay, now what I think I'm going to do is maybe just give you a few examples of what this might look like, and you can figure out if or how it pertains to your personal situation. But a way this could be, maybe for some of you, it's like a home situation. Maybe some of you have been wanting to move home for a while, but it's just been really slow goings. You haven't found a home, or you haven't known where to look, or just something hasn't been right. Well, maybe what occurred over the course of the past few weeks or months is that you started to change your approach to looking for a home. Maybe you started to look a little less, or maybe you started to just narrow down your search to a few more places so that you're not looking all over the place, and so that it's simpler. Or maybe you just started to only focus on just certain homes that you feel like are a better fit for you. And maybe what you're starting to feel around this new moon in Gemini is that you're starting to go visit a few homes that you want to move into, and that they're a better fit for you maybe than they've ever been, but maybe and that you're getting closer and closer to like finding the place you want to move to, but that you still haven't found the one yet. And that might make you feel a little discouraged and want to back out and stop looking for homes or whatever. And that's not what needs to happen. You need to continue with what this different approach you were doing, looking a little less or narrowing down your focus, because that may lead to the one a lot sooner than you think. Maybe even as soon as 2 weeks from now here that's going on. Okay, maybe this is a health thing. Maybe some of you have had some health issues you've been trying to work out, and maybe over the course of the past few weeks and months, you started to get a different approach to your health here that was going on. Maybe instead of looking to doctors to give you advice, you started listening to yourself and your own body. Maybe instead of a long, complicated, drawn out approach to your health, maybe you've started to look at simpler approaches that maybe are easier that you can do yourself, like instead of taking medication or getting surgery, like adjusting your diet or taking different vitamins or something just simpler in that regard. And maybe what you're feeling at this new moon in Gemini is that your health is starting to work and is starting to improve, but it's really not there yet where you really want it to be. And that may make you want to kind of back out or think what you're doing is not working or whatever. And the advice is not to stop, is to keep doing it, is to keep doing this different approach with your health, and maybe make a few teensy tweaks with it here. Not big ones, just tiny ones to make the health and the supplements or whatever you're taking, the diet, work a little bit better. Okay. If it's not that, maybe this is a job thing here. Maybe some of you have been looking for a job, trying to get a new job or change jobs or change careers for a while. Here that's going on. That's been really hard to do. Well, maybe over the course of the past few months, you started to get a different approach to your job search here, where instead of looking, all the time for new jobs and interviewing all the time for jobs, I think there's something about less and easier. You're looking at less jobs, or you're narrowing down your focus to only the jobs that you might like or might be a better fit or something of that sort here. And maybe what's going on at this new moon in Gemini is that you start to get an interview or two for a job that you think is a better fit for you, but but either it doesn't work out, or you haven't heard back from them yet. You don't know how it's going to go, and then you may get discouraged and want to just like throw everything up in the air and go back to the square one. And the answer is no, don't do that. Just keep with with what you were doing, the simpler and easier approach to finding jobs, and just trust that it'll work. And maybe make a few teensy tweaks to what jobs you're looking for, and how, and communicate a little bit more with some people about what you need. Okay, because that might help you get to where you need to go as soon as 2 weeks. Okay, that's going on. Maybe this is a relationship thing. Maybe some of you have had a relationship issue for the past few years that you haven't really known how to work with. Well, maybe over the course of the past few months, you started to get a different approach to your relationship, where you started to do things differently with them. Maybe you started just being a little more independent, letting kind of each of you do your own thing, or just tried to do a little bit of a simpler approach, whatever that might be like. And maybe you're starting to feel it work a little bit at this new moon in Gemini to improve your relationship, but it still isn't working fully here, and you may get discouraged. And the thought is, don't get discouraged, just keep trying this different approach to relationships, maybe making a few teensy more tweaks to how you interact and communicating, right? That was also a part, more frequently, because something good might happen soon here with that situation. Or maybe this is a dating thing. Maybe some of you have been dating, but you haven't really found the right person. So maybe a few weeks ago, you decided to date a little differently. And maybe it's kind of working, but not really. You just got to keep going. So I hope that's becoming more clear. Keep going. Don't give up. Is one of these messages. It's like a message of like hope and believing and moving forward. Don't give up before your miracle, I think, is the thing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and look at your inside degrees. So let's pull those up on the screen. These weren't written by me. They were written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of the degrees from spirit. But I like to read them because I think they're interesting and relevant. So let's do that. This new moon is at 6 degrees, but the planets are in motion. So I think sometimes before, of, and after can all be relevant. We've got here Gemini 5. It says consciousness flagrantly and outrageously running off to infinity with all that is happening. You are always able to take anything further, to follow things out beyond boundaries and limits, synchronized with multidimensionality. So right away, I get this thought of taking things further, following things out beyond boundaries and limits. And I think that's a huge part of my interpretation. You have to keep going with this different approach to life. Simpler needs, you have to follow it through beyond what you feel is your own boundaries and limits to this action here that's going on. Okay. It says blown so wide open that all you can do is exclaim, marvel, and alternate between rapture and despair. High strung and wildly strung. Engaged with all the outstanding possibilities. So I'm getting here a sense of anxiety and nervousness that following things out to the very end can create a lot of anxiety and nervousness and a lot of highs and lows, maybe even a lot of dual with the Gemini experiences of like 1 minute we're really happy that we're doing what we're doing and another minute we're worried that it's not working out. So a lot of like mood swings here about what can happen and with all the ideas and things going on. It says hopeful and yet equally doubtful. Yes, that's how I feel. Yearning toward a world where everybody can be free, vividly impressed by a world where the chains prevail. Caught in the crossfire between the old and the new, depending upon ingenuity and resourcefulness to each and every time open the space, stir up the pot, and uncover something dynamic and progressive in every corner of existence. Just asking to be rallied, championed, and brought further along in the sparkling mix we partake in together, with never a dull moment nor an entirely closed doors anywhere in sight. Okay. I think to me, this Gemini number 5 speaks to the fact here, we need to continue with this different approach to life we've been talking about, to take it further and follow it to the very end and surpass our own boundaries and limits pertaining to that. But that might create a lot of anxiety and mood swings, a lot of highs and lows, because we want it and we see that it can work. Okay. What did it say? A vision where everybody can be free, because we see it can work. We see a world in which this different behavior can work, but in which we're not there yet. And that's making us frustrated. All right, let's move on to 6 degrees Gemini. It says the self project, putting yourself through the paces, behind it all the steady gaze of commitment to outlast your own folly, steely determination to come again to a place of freedom and commanding presence. Okay, so here we get again with the Gemini energy, commitment and determination. You know, maybe that's not something that people typically associate with Gemini, but we're getting it here. And I like it because remember, Gemini's leading to Cancer season. It's the beginning of the zodiac, staying in something to watch it grow, not backing out of it. So we got to stay committed and determined to what we're doing here. It says the process is lacerating. Any illusions, all fragmentations become played out and worked out under pressure. Staying with yourself throughout and knowing how to orchestrate vast shifts by surrounding yourself with light. The prenatal resolve to put behind you every limit, no matter what it takes. You come from such implacable will that every vagary is goad and challenge. The heroic venture of moving from tangles and snarls into clean, classical lines and reliable and sound performance. Tackling the impossible with relish and elan. Or I don't know what that word is. Elan. Okay. I think what I get here from Gemini 6 is more commitment and determination is needed to break through your personal limitations, more of that to this new way of life and needing to have force of will, implacable will, a force of will here in order to do it. It's just a matter of choice is what I get here. It's just a matter of choice. This isn't waiting until it feels comfortable and natural and easy. It's a matter of choice. You just choose to keep doing it. This different approach. Okay. Not only that, but I also like this last line of like moving from tangles and snarls into clean classical lines, because I do think that this is the transition out of hard times into better times. This new moon in Gemini is that transition. So it's going to take us out of difficulty into better times if we just work with it and allow it to happen. Okay, now let's read Gemini 7. It says the inner story is fanciful, full spectrum, open, unformed. Outward events do not match the inner story. A question arises where to put the emphasis. What do you believe? Okay, this to me also speaks of a little bit of a challenge, which we kind of saw in the other 2 degrees, 5 and 6 here, where we're feeling like we see something's possible for our lives, yet it hasn't happened yet. And that being really frustrating. And not only does this indicate that, but it also brings up belief. We did talk a bit in this video about being open-minded, shifting your ideas here as well. And so I do think there's a crisis of like beliefs and ideas of like, what do I believe here that can come up at this new moon in Gemini and especially into the full moon in Sagittarius. Okay, it says if the way things go outwardly is all, the spirit is crushed. If caprice and whimsy contain treasures, there is room here for hope and for permission to be. But you cannot depend upon caprice and whimsy. So the battle rages between doubt and conviction. Doubt knows that it never works out as you planned. Conviction answers that it is entirely up to you and you will get what you asked for. So more Gemini 7 of like, I believe this can work, but I don't see this approach working, so I'm doubtful. An inner battle raging. And the answer, again, we come back to conviction. Conviction to me is a matter of choice. This is not the time to like fall back into, right? It's a matter of choice. Choice to move forward in a different way and to not fall backwards and to not get carried backwards by currents without our conscious awareness. Because some of us may be subconsciously pulled backward into old behaviors without knowing it. And there's a need, I'm getting a sense of like being consciously aware. Maybe that's also with the Gemini having to do with the conscious mind. We need to start to be consciously aware of our behaviors here and to choose to do the different ones anyways, even if they feel uncomfortable and even if they don't seem like they're going to work. And even if it doesn't feel good or natural, because it's going to help us get where we need to be. All right, and I think that's it. I think that's all I'll say there. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull your card. Okay. So let's see which one we get. Oh, here we go. Perfect. The 7 of Pentacles. Okay, this is fitting. To me, the 7 of Pentacles is one of like continuing, like you're doing good. You're doing good. Keep going. You know, see, there's like a person carrying a wheelbarrow with a bunch of good flowers, which we are going into growing season, right? Cancer, the plant's growing even bigger. So I think the message is you're doing good. Keep going. Keep going. If you've been doing something differently the past few months, keep going in that direction here. And believe. Maybe it's another believe and have hope and have faith that if you're doing the best you can, that it'll work out. Okay, at the bottom of the deck, we've got the Hermit reversed. Okay, the Hermit is a lot about inner stillness and inner calm and peace, and I don't think that we're having it. I don't think we're having it here. I think that we're worried that what we're doing isn't going to work or isn't good enough. And so I think that part of the advice is not only keep doing what you're doing, okay? Don't get discouraged, keep your chin up. But is also to quiet your inner mind or find the calm and still place within yourself so that you don't get frustrated, so that you don't back out, so that you don't get worried, so that you don't start telling yourself all these crazy things here that's going on. Maybe meditation, time alone may be good for some of you to help you calm your mind as well, okay? Because we need to stay on this path that we're on and just be more at peace and calm and accepting and just trusting of the process here that's happening. So I think that's the message Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing good. You're doing good. Keep doing what you're doing. Believe, trust, be calm, find the inner stillness in yourself in order to do it so that you can stay on this path and the inner fortitude, and maybe meditation or connecting with spirit and intuition will help you do that. And I think that's all I'm going to say here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. I wish you all the best this new moon, and I'll talk to you 2 weeks from now at that full moon in the sign of Sagittarius.